Hello everyone, welcome back to Just My Stupid Opinion. Today I wanted to discuss what ended up going down in Kingston over the last couple days, and this had to do with the terrorist bombing plot that ended up getting raided by the RCMP. There were two homes, two individuals who ended up getting taken into police custody, and they ended up facing charges of terrorism. And it's pretty much been confirmed that there was a plot that was put in place. I'm just going to be periodically going to a couple pieces of information that I have here. And so what we do know for a fact is that the arrest of two young people during raids on two homes in Kingston, Ontario thwarted a terrorist bomb. Let me just quickly change this. There you go. A terrorist bomb plot that was already in process of building homemade improvised explosive devices, a senior RCMP counterterrorism official said. So what we do know so far is that, what we do know is not very good for Canada and for the people involved in our intelligence industries, because what we were tipped off back in December of 2018 about a threat, and this tip-off came from the FBI. So what was said is that the RCMP received this tip-off from the FBI, and they ended up looking into these accusations, and they found that there were enough evidence there to warrant a police raid on the two individuals. Now, one ended up getting released, and that was Hassam, how do you pronounce his name? Hassam al-Zahabi. He was the older of the two, who ended up getting arrested. He was held for that 24-hour period, and then he was released after that. So as far as we know now, there was not enough evidence to connect him to this terrorist plot. It's possible that in the future we may find some more about that, but what we do know is that he is a Syrian refugee. His family ended up fleeing Syria back in about 2006, I believe it was. Maybe a little bit after that, 2007 or so. But anyway, he ended up staying in Kuwait for some time. I think they said that him and his family spent about 10 years in Kuwait, and then they ended up coming to Canada in 2016, 2017. And since then, he's been going to college. Now, the other person who ended up getting arrested, we don't know much about. We don't know much about him because he's underage. And the Criminal Youth Justice Act, it prevents us from putting out information about people who are over the age of 12 but under the age of 18. It protects everything about them. The only thing that we do have to go on is a court drawing that ended up taking place that was released by the CBC. And it just says at the bottom, minor who can't be identified under the Youth Criminal Justice Act appears in a Kingston courtroom Friday to face two charges related to an anti-terrorism investigation. And the charges that this youth is facing, this is a statement that was put out by the RCMP about this terrorism plot, is they said the charges include knowingly facilitating a terrorist activity contrary to sections 83.19 of the Criminal Code and counseling a person to deliver, place, discharge, or detonate an explosive or other lethal devices to, into, in, or against a place of public use with intent to cause death or serious bodily injury, contradictory to section 431.2 of the Criminal Code, offenses which was not committed and did thereby commit an offense contradictory to section 464A of the Criminal Code. So that's what the youth has been. Accused of. What they're being held in court for. So we don't know much about him. But what we do know is that with the FBI informing the RCMP about this, that the American law enforcement agencies know more about what's going on in our country than our own law enforcements do. How is it that the RCMP needed a tip-off from another country to know about a terrorism plot that was going to take place in Kingston, Ontario? This is not very... doesn't bring a lot of faith in the RCMP to me. Why would it? Why would I be thinking that they are doing a good job when this is what they're being when they're being tipped off about this? Meanwhile, they're being reduced to being bellhops over at Roxham Road and carrying people's luggage across for them. So it's just, this is actually, I find that despite the fact they raided this place and they stopped any plot from taking place, they ended up actually doing more harm to their image than good. I mean, I'm glad that they stopped this before anything ended up taking place, but because of this, because we had to be told by the FBI It just doesn't put much faith into it. And even since then, they released a press conference where they said next to nothing. They let us know the basic details. You know, there was evidence of an explosive device being made. We received this tip-off, blah, 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 blah. Most of the information that's already publicly out there. But then when it went on to talk about some of the greater details, they wouldn't comment. They said they couldn't comment or they wouldn't comment. You know, it's just not putting much faith, especially what I don't understand about this is the RCMP who ended up calling this press conference to give us basic details, and then they can't even from there give us any more than that. But it also is clear to me that Canada is in such a state of political correctness that they can't even comment on the real reason that this is taking place. Because one comment that was made by RCMP supervisor Peter Lambertucci, he ended up saying at this press conference, the individual identified expressed capacity and capability and intent, but not specific ideology. I can't comment on that. It was a confirmed attack plan. There is a motive, but I am not prepared to comment on that right now. So, they can't comment on ideology, eh? Really? You really can't comment. Okay, then I'll say it. It is quite clear that this youth, whoever he happens to be, was definitely a radical Muslim. This is the reason that they're taking place. This is the reason that you're going to commit an act like this. And I mean, these sort of things are going to keep taking place because it's been, what, 30, 40 years that countries such as America has been bombing the Middle East. And Canada's not innocent on that. I mean, we played our part in Afghanistan. We've been taking part in it too. But this is what's going to end up happening, is that you end up bombing the crap out of these countries, and then you're going to import the people, and of course many of them are going to have radical points of views. They're going to be pissed off with everything that's ended up taking place. Now, I don't know if this is the reason why this kid ended up doing what he ended up doing. I have no proof of that. I'm just going on assumption right now because we don't really have anything else to go on. Thank you, RCMP, for that. One thing that about this too is that apparently this was such a big case that they ended up bringing out their spy planes, and this is something that is just leading up to the arrest that ended up taking place, was starting to get reported in the news. Riddle, a mysterious plane that for weeks buzzed Kingston sky at night, solved by RCMP terror arrests. The plane manufacturer said it has the ability to remain virtually undetectable by any person under surveillance. This particular operation didn't exactly go unnoticed. That's because this plane was operating in the middle of the night at 3 a.m., and people in Kingston were taking notice. They had taken pictures of it, videos of it. They were commenting about it on social media. So if the point of this plane is to remain undetected, then you did a pretty shitty job there, guys. This plane is the Pilatus PC-12. And it's been, I think it said that there's a fleet of 16 of them in total. Yeah, RCMP air fleet includes 16 Pilatus PC-12 planes, but that's the thing. They're supposed to remain quiet, but that couldn't be anything farther than the truth from this situation. But I'm also starting to wonder did this plane that has been circling this area for weeks, was this a tip-off to these individuals, or at least the individual has been arrested? I can't speculate on the one who got released, the Hassam al-Zahabi. I can't really speculate on what he know or didn't know, because as it stands, he's not been criminally charged. That might change in the future. Maybe he will. Maybe he will face some charges if there's more investigation that ended up going through. But people were saying that many people in Kingston were aware that this was a RCMP plane, that it was obviously, at the very least, they knew it was doing surveillance on the local area, saying it'd be active at 3 a.m. and just be doing donuts in the same area. So if the accused, this kid who got arrested, is aware of this, then that might have been a tip-off, giving him the opportunity to dump some of the evidence. There still seemed to be enough to make an arrest and charge him. But that's one thing I've wondered about this whole thing. They ended up, when talking about why they made the arrest, the RCMP ended up saying the decision to arrest was not one because he had The decision to arrest was not one because we had met any kind of threat to public safety. At no time was there a threat to public safety. A decision to arrest was made strictly on the collection of evidence and accumulating a substantial amount of evidence that allowed us to charge. So this is sort of the thing that they're doing, is they're watering down everything when it comes to this case. I mean, they're saying that at no time was there a threat to public safety. Well, if people are starting to plot a terrorist attack, if they have some of the materials to make a bomb, then yes, that is a threat to public safety, even if they don't have the time to carry it out. Even if they didn't have the time to bomb anyone, that's still a threat to public safety. And the thing is, too, and I'll see, maybe it's in this article where they're talking about it. When they're discussing about when it comes to the bomb, like what they did with the bomb, what they came across with the bomb, it's actually quite concerning, some of the stuff that they had available to them. Is it here? I'll end up finding this. But it's the materials itself. RCMP supervisor Peter Lambertucci, the officer in charge of Inset Ottawa, said precursor elements that could be used in explosives were found in one of the homes that was raided. Presumably that would be the miner. In the raid Thursday night, but officials say a bomb was never placed. Officials said they detonated and neutralized a substance at a nearby parking lot. Well, what substance are you talking about? Because now it's starting to sound like you're talking about more than just an actual bomb itself, but a substance that, and I mean, the substance was rendered inert because of what the RCMP did. But it sounds to me like this might have been some sort of, I don't know, chemical weapon. When you put it that way, a substance. I mean, the substance could just be, I don't know, some accelerator for the bomb, possibly. But don't forget that we found out that just through the Danforth shooter, we ended up finding out that, like, I think it was his brother or a friend of his, I can't remember one, but had enough chemicals, I think it was fentanyl, in order to create an actual chemical attack in Canada that could have killed thousands. If it was released in a major part of the city, it could have done a lot more damage than that. So I'm wondering, is this something like that? Is this going to be something similar where we find out that it wasn't just a bomb, but it was going to be a dirty bomb of some kind? It's absolutely unbelievable that this is to the extent that it got to, in my opinion. Now, when it comes to this guy who ended up getting released, this Hassam al-Zahabi, he ended up getting held for 24 hours, and then he was released with no criminal charges placed against him. And it says here that according to City News, al-Zahabi said the accused discussed plots and bombs through Facebook and WhatsApp. The accused talked a lot about that, said al-Zahabi. The investigators thought I was encouraging the accused to do something like that, but I said to the accused and tried to prevent stuff like that. It's not good. It doesn't give any benefit to you. So this is coming from the guy who ended up getting arrested, his own words. So maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. But it's clear that these two were talking, and as it has been described by the RCMP, they say we can't speak on the specifics of communication or the relationship between the two. They do travel in company, one with the other, Lambertucci said. They have an informal relationship, a friendship. Now, it's possible that this friendship that they're talking about is nothing. It may not be an actual friendship like you go out and you hang out with them, although it's probably very likely considering that they live in the same area. And this is what they said. They travel together in company. Now, as far as I know, and everything that I've seen released, I haven't heard of anything about this guy, Hassam al-Zahabi. I haven't heard anything about him going on vacation or leaving the country for whatever reason, again, vacation or something like that. But it says they traveled together. Now, al-Zahabi and his family, after they left Syria back in about 2006, 2007, they ended up staying in Kuwait for some time, and then they came to Canada in 2016, 2017. I believe this is what they're making reference to when they talk about this youth, that it was, in fact, that they came to Canada together. This is what they mean when they say they travel, which would assume that this youth is not a Canadian citizen because they're not being open with this sort of information, whether it is a Canadian citizen or not. But from the speculation and sort of reading between the lines, it seems clear that this is the case, that this guy was not a Canadian citizen who came to Canada, was going to commit an act like that. And I would like to see these Facebook messages and WhatsApp messages. I would like to see them released to the public. Of course, you have to redact them because you don't want, like, the youth his identity can't be revealed or any of that. So, of course, that sort of thing has to be redacted. But I would like to see these conversations that ended up taking place between the two, because I want to know for certain that there wasn't more going on behind the scenes. It sounds like, because to me, if somebody starts messaging you, a friend or not, and is talking about bombs, I mean, let's go back and see exactly what they were saying. They said it was, the accused talked a lot about that discussion. The accused discussed plots and bombs throughout Facebook and WhatsApp. Wouldn't that be a tip-off to this guy, Al-Zahabi? Wouldn't that be a tip-off that something's wrong here? Maybe you should report this to the police, but that doesn't seem to have taken place. As far as we know, he hasn't. Some have speculated that he has worked with the police investigation, but if he was, I don't know why he would have been arrested in the initial raids then. But even if we're talking about sort of the attitude that I find that his family has, I still have some reservations about this guy. Let me just see. I think I'm all done here. Yeah, just finishing up real quick on the information from here. It says, few other details were released. RCMP declined to answer questions about the possible motive or ideology behind the plot, what specifically were the bomb elements found, how much explosive material were seized, who the youth is alleged to have counseled to do the bombing, which if Al-Zahabi had absolutely nothing to do with it, it's quite possible then, most likely I would say, that he was the one being counseled to do the bombing, is my guess. I'm saying if it turns out that he has absolutely no connection to this plot whatsoever, and he was arrested just because of the messages in between them. So it says who the youth is alleged to have counseled to do the bombing, whether others were under investigation, how the FBI caught on to the plot, or whether either of those arrested were Canadian citizen. Well, it doesn't sound like they are. Although, who knows, with the way that Trudeau just hands out citizenships left, right, and center, it's quite a possibility that maybe they were a Canadian citizen. But we know what they mean by that. They're not born and raised in Canada. They're somebody who have been here for a few weeks, a few months, a year, or something like that. A few years at most. But then I wanted to just... when I was talking about, I had some concerns about the type of people that his family are. It's just sort of, I find that there's this air of, how do I describe it? I guess what I would say is that to me, it seems like to them, they feel that the police doesn't have the authority that it does. And what I'm making reference to, just give me 2 seconds here. Okay, I thought I accidentally opened my Microsoft Word for a second. But it comes from this opinion piece by Christy Blanchford, a terror plot, but all you got from police was hot air. Now, I'm going to skip down most of this, and for those who want to see this article, you can either go check it out if you like, or what you can do too is Canada Polly, the YouTube channel. He ended up doing a breakdown of this article as well. But here's the thing that I really wanted to focus on. This area right here. So after they spoke to Al-Zahabi Sr., his father, about everything, and he said, like, you know, his son wouldn't do this, it's fake news, his son's going to college, or university, I should say. Oh, I did open that. 1 second. Crap. Sorry, everyone, my computer's just doing, freezing up for a second. I have a lot of tabs and shit open, so... There we go. All right, here we go. It says, Understandably, given his short time in the country, the father doesn't have much English, but his command of the new language was sufficiently muscular that he immediately deemed his son's arrest fake news, and his knowledge of his new rights and freedoms was sufficiently broad that he was deeply offended. See, this is sort of what I mean about, like, where I have some concerns, or like the type of attitude that his family has already. Is that like, oh, the police were supposed to knock on your door very nicely and just wait for your wife to put her hijab on when they think there's a fucking bombing plot that's going on? Go fuck yourself, buddy. But although this really is getting into sort of my broader problems I have with mass immigration, so I don't want to focus on that too much. But as they ended up saying, it says, they were talking about Trudeau. It says, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reminded Canadians that we are a country that is one of the safest in the world, in part because of our extraordinary work our police services and intelligence services do. Then came the warning. Anyone who chooses to divide Canadians against each other, who uses fear and violence to divide us, by this he meant anyone who utters the M for Muslim word, will fail, Trudeau said, because we are such a resilient people. So before I actually get into that, let's actually watch the video itself and what he said on it. Shut your mouth. That's what this is talking about. It's talking about shutting your mouth, and don't you dare talk about the real problems behind this. I mean, it's quite possible that Trudeau was making reference to the person who ended up getting arrested, but I don't think he was. And many other people who heard that didn't think it was. We're pretty sure he's making reference to those who would point to the fact that many of these attacks have come from Muslim extremists, and because of that reason, he's giving a warning to Canadians. You notice how much he plays defense for the extremists in our society? I mean, fuck. It was been about a year now since we had that fake hijab cutting story where he pulled his entire cabinet together to give a heartbreaking apology to Calla Noman about what she faced. But whenever it's been something similar, he never gives the same benefit of the doubt. He has no problem with the divisive rhetoric that he and his government end up putting out there. And it's just, to me, it's kind of disgusting. He says this while his security guards stand nearby. I mean, I'm not 100% sure if those are his actual security guards themselves, but he is definitely someone who receives, that has personal bodyguards. And he's always had personal bodyguards because of his family's wealth and who his family is. But the rest of us don't get that luxury. I don't have a personal bodyguard. Do you? I'm going to go on a limb and say no. And last thing I wanted to do, too, is that they're also using this as an excuse to attack the right-wing parties. Right now, specifically, we're talking about Andrew Scheer and his conservative parties, because Ralph Goodale gave a statement about everything that took place since he's the Minister of Public Safety. And he pretty much, when it came out that one of the people who ended up getting arrested was a Syrian refugee, well, then we ended up getting like Andrew Scheer ended up putting out about how he praised the police system, then said we need a proper vetting system for those coming into our country. And then Ralph Goodale has been using this to attack them. So for them, let's be clear, all it is political brownie points that they're trying to score with this. He says this, and to me, the Liberal Party have been the fucking worst to do this. I can bring up again what happened last year with Cal Noman. We can talk about what ended up happening with Patrick Brown and how he got ousted without even so much as a police investigation getting opened up with him with just the allegations. But I think the better example I should give is the case when it came to Colton Boushie. Because maybe the Liberals didn't comment on, I'm sure they did actually comment on the case before it even was going to court or anything like that, or all the facts came out. But the main thing was how Trudeau was talking about the justice system that was out there and how terrible it is, how racist it is to Indigenous people, and how we needed to change it up. But it's just, to me, getting back a little more back on track, is I have more concerns about what we're not being told about this case. I want to know what the substance is that got detonated. I want to know what ended up coming out from that, what sort of evidence they found inside there. I want to know how widespread it is. I want to know how many people out there were involved with this case. And I want to know where this kid is from. Because, like I said, reading between the lines, it looks like he was not a Canadian citizen. And it wouldn't be the first time that we dealt with this sort of thing. So just want to quickly get that off my chest. Bring any new information that anybody wasn't unaware of to the light, but I don't know if I did. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in. I'll talk to you soon.